And welcome to this video on break-even analysis. So I'm going to go through an example here for you. So the following is the break-even chart of a business that makes and sells a single product. The key here, the revenue is the green line. So it's done at 0 there, going all the way up to 100,000 on the left for revenue and 25,000 number of units at the bottom. Total cost is the red one. That's going to be based at 30,000. Starts at 30,000. And the fixed costs are the 30,000, and the break-even point is the cross in the middle. So it's 15,000 units at £60,000 revenue or costs. Now you're given the information underneath anyway. So the total fixed costs are 30,000, break-even revenue is £60,000, and break-even number of units is 15,000 units. I've got a few things to work out now, so we've got 5 little things to do. Part A, calculate the selling price per unit of the product. Now that's quite a straightforward one. So the selling price per unit is the break-even revenue over the break-even number of units. So go back to the break-even revenue is this point here, which is at £60,000. And it actually tells us that underneath, so £60,000. So break-even revenue is £60,000. Break-even number of units, we're told that is 15,000. That's basically going down to there. Units sold, 15,000. Now, 60,000 divided by 15,000 should give us £4 per unit. So the selling price is £4 per unit. Now, part B, calculate the variable cost per unit. So, variable cost is part of contribution per unit. So the break-even units equals the fixed costs over the contribution per unit. Now, break-even units, again, we just worked out at here, that was 15,000. So 15,000 is break-even units. Again, that's in your diagram. It's where the two lines, because the costs times revenue cross 15,000, dashed down the bottom. And the fixed costs we were told they were at 30,000. So that's your blue line there, exactly between 20 and 40,000. So that's £30,000 over contribution per unit. Now, if I rearrange this, basically this is a maths, rearranging formula or changing the subject formula, the contribution per unit then is going to be the £30,000 divided by the 15,000 number of units. And 30,000 divided by 15,000 will give us £2 per unit. So the contribution per unit is £2 per unit. Now the formula for contribution per unit is your selling price take away your variable cost per unit. Now the selling price we know from part A is £4 per unit. So that one there. So it's £4 per unit. The contribution we know from what we just worked out here is £2 per unit. So £2 is equal to £4 take away the variable cost per unit. So again, I've rearranged that. The variable cost per unit is going to be equal to £4 take away the contribution per unit of £2. So it gives a variable cost per unit of £4 over £2, which is £2. Now part C, so state the formula used to calculate the contribution per unit. So we just put in the formula, no numbers. And part C, contribution per unit is your selling price take away variable cost per unit. Now we have actually used that in the previous part up here, but we worked it out there. So contribution per unit was selling price per unit to go variable cost per unit. Now part D, it says calculate the contribution per unit. So part of the contribution per unit is a selling price per unit. Now we know what that is. It's in part A. That's £4 per unit. Take away the variable cost we just worked out in part B, £2. So the contribution per unit is the £4. Take away the £2. So that gives us £2 per unit. So contribution is £2 per unit. Now the final part E, says calculate the forecast profit if 20,000 units are manufactured and sold. Now there's a shortcut way of doing this, which is what I'm going to show you now. So basically the profit is your contribution per unit take away your fixed costs. So the total contribution, we've got 20,000 units.
And the contribution per unit we just worked out was £2. So the total contribution is your £20,000 times your £2, which gives you £40,000. Now your fixed costs, again, we go back to our diagram of the information underneath. The fixed cost of the blue line, and that's going to be the £30,000. So I've got it down here, £30,000. And your profit then for the 20,000 units is going to be a contribution of 40,000, take away your fixed cost of £30,000. So your profit for the 20,000 units is going to be £10,000. So thank you for watching this video on break-even analysis.